The typical line loss from the panel to the point of consumption is about 20% dependent. In that 20%, you have a line loss of about 4% that the inverter is responsible for. You can't do anything about that, that's physics. The inverter, by the way, converts the electricity that's produced by the panels in the form of DC to AC for use in the building. Our line loss total is 7.5%. 4% of that is the inverter, so we really have only 3.5% of line loss that we can address. And we're very comfortable with that number because remember up front I told you I oversized my system by 10%. On average, we tend to over-deliver by about 15% to our commit. And we do not charge for that over-delivery. We flat bill, we say we're going to deliver 60,000 kilowatt hours a year. We divide that by whatever, and multiply that by whatever the rate is. Let's say it's 10 cents, which it's not. But let's just say it's 10 cents, so you'd have a $6,000 bill. Divided by 12, that's $500 a month. But if I over-deliver by 10%, let's say, then your price is no longer 10 cents, it's now really 9 cents. And we tend to over-deliver by about 15%, so you should see at the end of the year about a 15% price reduction off of what our contractual obligation is to you, based on the incremental energy that we've delivered. The result of all this, all this work was we started a company back in 2009. In 2009, our revenue as a company was about $400,000. Last year, our revenue was about $9 million. We started with 0 assets, of course, and last year our assets were in excess of $12 million. If you look at, I just want to find the page, the ratings page. If you look at page 6 of the document you guys have in front of you, there is something called the 1603 cash grant. In 2006, under President Bush, there was a renewable energy tax credit implemented for solar, wind, or whatever. In 2009, under President Obama, as part of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, that was changed from a tax credit to either a tax credit or a cash grant. And that cash grant was entitled, or has been called Section 1603 of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. So if you look at this chart as of March 13th, New York Light Energy nationally was the 72nd largest recipient of those cash 1603 cash payments in the country. Since then, we've already requested another $1.5 million. So you can see that would put us up in the 60s quite handily. In New York State, by the way, I just want to point out that makes us #1 by at least a factor of 2 or 3 for the amount of federal aid we received for these type of installs. We also started out with 2 customers. They were Northeast Acura and Saratoga Honda. They were impressed enough with our systems and the performance of our systems that they actually asked, and we allowed them to become investors in the company. In 2010, we installed systems on Meridian's furniture. If you guys have ever been up and down 87 or the Northway, and seen the Meridian's building there, there's one of the largest non-utility solar arrays on top of that building. The reason why I mention that is, A, we can show you the performance of that, but B, and most importantly, you don't even know it's there. We try and blend in with the environment as much as we can. We don't want the panels to be sort of an eyesore. But that array is sitting up there. At the end of 2012, not so quick, at the end of 2011, we had installed 55 systems, all under power purchase agreements, both for businesses. We just have completed an install with the town of Amsterdam, and we're looking at doing other townships in the area. We're doing, we think we'll be doing Princetown, Corinth, a number of other. City of Amsterdam is looking at using our stuff, and we're beginning to work on Gloversville and Johnstown also. Net of it all is we have no unhappy customers. our customers, and I encourage you guys to call anybody on the list. If we have an unhappy customer, I'd sure love to know, because as far as I know, we don't. But please call anybody on the list. They should all be happy with not only the amount of delivery, but the service we offer. And that service starts at the beginning. One of the things that we do very differently than anybody else in the non-utility world is we partner with different folks. So when we come and do this building, for example, if you allow us to, we will bring in CT Mail. CT Mail will do two things for us. One, they'll do a structural assessment of the building. I'm sure this building there'll be no problem, but that is with every facility that we consider. CT Mail comes in and does a structural assessment and gives us the go-ahead to put up the building, if the panels, if it goes on the roof, or if it's on ground mount outside, then CT Mail will do the environmental analysis and impact statements and all the things that we need to take care of that. They will also come in and do a study of the electrical system that the building has, so we know that we can plug in and how we can plug in and that we can meet code. So for example, on page on page 13, you can see a standard installation of an external inverter array. This is a Tri-City Fitness off of exit 6 off of Northway. There are a number of things here that are kind of unique. One is you'll see 3 boxes there, 2 gray ones, 1 large one and 1 small one. The large gray box is the DC disconnect, the small gray box is the AC disconnect. The only box that is mandated by the solar portion of the National Electric Code is the small AC disconnect. It's bothersome to us. We believe that there should be a DC disconnect on the other side because you want to be able to isolate the piece of equipment. We worked with CT Mail. CT Mail agreed that that in fact was the appropriate thing to do. So we, in all of our installations, put both those disconnects. We also put a third AC disconnect in, and we put that in the electric room or wherever your panel might be. The reason why we do that is you guys will probably have an electrician that will come in and do some work on the building the next 20 years. Every electrician that was born in the last 50 years knows that power comes from the grid. Well, lo and behold, if we're now producing power on the roof, that changes the flow. And we want to make sure, for safety's sake, that that electrician has a very visible reminder and a very easy way to simply shut off the power from the array on the roof and do his work and then turn that power back on. We remotely monitor the system, so we will know the minute that that power has been shut off, and we'll probably have somebody out here to ask if we can help or what we can do. The other things that this picture shows, which is kind of unique, and I talked to Lou about this and showed him some other pictures. This is right on the edge of a parking lot by the tennis courts, and you know, we kind of felt that you needed to have some bollards there. There's 600 volts worth of electricity traveling through that inverter, which is the central piece of equipment. We put that in at our cost. That was not specified by code. Two reasons for that. One, it's safety. I mean, you know, people have been known to make mistakes while driving, but more importantly, I want to protect, or as importantly, excuse me, I'd like to protect my equipment. I've invested a tremendous amount of money in that equipment, and I'd rather not have somebody drive into it. From a sort of finishing touch perspective, we also tend to paint the conduit and have it try and blend into the building as best as possible. You know, conduit's not a very attractive thing. We do need it, but we want to paint, make it blended into the building as much as we possibly can. One of the things that we've done in this case is also taken a look at the paint. For example, we did an analysis of the paint. We use a 2-part paint from Pittsburgh Paint that has a 20-year warranty. And we do that not only to make it look good or blend into the building, but also to protect the conduit and allow it to survive without rust for 20 years so we don't degrade the external look of the building. The other thing is that we're using steel conduit. We always use steel conduit, and we use steel threaded conduit. We don't use compression fittings outside. Compression fittings are great inside, but when you're outside, you've got hot and cold. You know, it is possible that that compression fitting will fail over 20 years. A threaded fitting won't. So all these things, when we package it all up, we not only have a high-performance system, we have a high-performance system that CT Mail has reviewed and stamped and said this system is being designed properly and being implemented properly. And we have a safe system as best as we can make it for our customers and for their contractors such as electricians. And on top of it all, we're now monitoring remotely, so we're taking the responsibility and hopefully some of the headache away from you guys, putting it on our shoulders where we know what we're doing and we'll come out and take care of the system. I'm not quite sure if that was an hour or a half hour or 15 minutes, but I tried to hit on the highlights. In the presentation, in the second packet we gave you. Yes, sir.
You might want to explain
Sorry.
who CT Mail is.
Oh, I'm sorry, CT Mail is a structural engineering company. They're located in Latham. They're one of the largest structural engineering companies in the state of New York. They do both structural engineering, electrical engineering. They design buildings and things like that. So we've gone to what we believe is one of the best firms to confirm our work in New York State. Everything we do, we tend to want to use the best that's available. It's got to survive for 20 years, and it's got to perform as we said it's going to perform for 20 years.
Thanks,
In the next document, the set of documents I presented, or we handed out at the beginning, there are two things. One is a summary of our proposal, and then below that there's each facility proposal, and attached to that is a map of how we would do the installation for each facility, at each particular place, where we would put the panels, and we would definitely work with everybody, the stakeholders in this, to make sure that we weren't blocking snow removal, for example. We didn't know that that's where the guys did put all the snow when they plowed it. We can move it around and we can do what we need to do. There is one situation that we would want to talk to you folks about, and it has to do with, which one is this? The Settle Hills, the water tower.
River Drive.
I'm sorry?
River Drive.
Yeah.
Most of the same
The electric bill said Settles Hill Access Road, so whatever's at the end of that.
Settles Hill, like the water.
Well, Mark, you got to look at it.
Yeah, but the reason why we perhaps call it Settle Hills is we're obligated by NYSERDA rules to use whatever's on the bill. So if the bill is got to be changed.
I don't think that's, I don't know for sure, but I don't think Settles Hill. You may have had that bill,
Right.
but I don't know if we're attaching it to the right.
Okay.
It was the River.
That could be a mistake. The one with the water tower on it has a fence around the water tower.
Yeah.
Right. And the issue here is that we would need to move that fence a little bit so we could get the panels in and not be shaded by both the water tower and the trees at the same time. And other than that, I'd love to answer any questions you folks have about what we do and how we do it. I'm sorry, on the very last section here, there are some additional pictures that we've added. They look like this. These are pictures of the installation at the town of Amsterdam, both the city hall, or the town hall, and right next, the next page would be the garage facility. And then I think particularly for Joe, we also included the drawings of all the ground mount technology that we would use to support.
Alex, could you tell them what our actual cost savings would be?
The cost savings in the first year would be, would be about $4,260.
On which building? On this building or
That's overall. overall. Now, I want to talk about that a little bit. I'm on camera, so I've got to be careful. We have certain rules that we have to deal with NYSERDA. One of those rules is we are not allowed to put up a system that produces more than 110% of your actual usage. This system here, the overall production that we're talking about here will produce 105.56%.
Is that on this building?
No, that's in total.
In total.
In total. So we're actually going to produce more energy than you're consuming. The reason why the savings are where they're at is, once again, our numbers are very conservative. So we always make worst case assumptions. That 105% is a real number, and it's probably, when it's all said and done, really 115% is what you'll actually experience. But your savings, I believe, will be larger than we have in this proposal. But that $4,200 relates to $113,000 over the term of the agreement.
So, one of my concerns is 20 years is a long time, a really long time, especially in our age of technology now. Things change in 6 months. So my concern is, I understand the wafer and the element piece, but still, after 20 years, what's going to be the end of life on some of this hardware?
At the end of 20 years, our forecast is the system will be producing roughly 9%, 8.3% less than it is producing today. At the end of 20 years, we'll come back, or hopefully he'll come back, and talk to you folks and offer you three choices. One would be to buy the system at fair market value. The other would be to have us take it off. And the other would be to just extend the contract for another period of time. You could do year by year or whatever makes sense at that point in time.
So I guess my question really is, so these panels, panel A, I'm not sure how you do an array, in an array, but in 20 years, I'm assuming it's going to be, you're not going to be able to go to the manufacturer and say, hey, I need the part number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 72, because something happened to this panel in the middle of my array. How do you guys address that? I mean, in 20 years, any cars you're buying today will be MD, right? Manufactured, and you're not going to get parts for them.
Right.
How are you going to give me parts in 19 years?
Well, the answer to that is a part of our upfront strategy when we select the panel. First of all, we selected a vendor that is in business to make solar panels. That would be Kyocera Solar America. Having said that, Kyocera Solar America is part of a larger corporation called Kyocera. Kyocera is a $50 billion corporation. It has never lost money its entire history since 1955. They could choose to shut down any particular group, but they will still have warranty protection on any product that they put up. And their warranty states that if that particular product is not available, or you can't buy that particular product, they will replace it with equal to or better product. So we have to make sure we look at a company that's going to be around in 20 years so we can ensure that the warranty operates. We're very concerned about that exact thing. I mean, what happens if a tree falls on an array and it's got, not your fault, not our fault, the tornado comes through, whatever. We need to be able to replace that. Once again, it's not your concern because I've got that responsibility to deliver the energy. You have no responsibility to the system. It's really my concern to go out and replace that. And we're very concerned about that. We keep track of serial numbers, date of purchase, and date of installation on every single panel that we've installed. We've installed over 15,000 panels. And you give me a serial number, I'll tell you where it is within 15 minutes. I just have to log onto the computer. But we're very concerned with that exact same thing. That's why we purchase 20-year warranties on the inverter. We make sure that we're dealing with an inverter company that has the financial wherewithal to be here, and its main business is not inverters. That would be called a company called Advanced Energy. Their main business is thin film technology for the semiconductor and hard disk drive business. They only do about 10% of their total annual revenue in hard disk drives, in solar inverters. We're doing everything we can to minimize the risk and to make sure that the material's available.
So, again, I don't want to harp on it, but I'm going to have to. The company that I work with was #1 in the world, and they went bankrupt. It happens.
Mhm.
Kisera, whoever it is, it can happen,
Mhm.
right? I mean, it definitely happens. So what is, again, are you bonded? Is there insurance? And what's the town's position again? And, we come to you or your son in 20 years, 19 and a half, whatever, and say, half the panels aren't working, and you can't get replacements. I mean, where's our protection, I guess?
Well, you won't be able to say half the panels aren't working. What you'll be able to say is, you're not delivering me the total volume of energy you committed, right? Because the panels and the inverters and all the componentry, that's all our responsibility. The maintenance of it, to make sure replacement of it, all of that is ours, it's not yours. The only thing you can do is you can say, excuse me, New York Light Energy, you are failing to deliver the right amount of energy. And at that point in time, you have a couple of choices. If we're not aware of it already, and we haven't attempted to remediate the problem, you can choose to notify us of this, and if we don't fix the problem within a very short period of time, I believe it's 30 days in the contract, maybe it's 60 days in the contract, then you have the capability to say, excuse me, we'd like you to take that off of our property because you're failing to meet your contractual obligations. But ultimately,
So there is a clause.
yes. Ultimately, the protection that you have is, it's all about the power that we're delivering, right? And you don't care about the componentry, because that's really our problem. We're committing to deliver power, we're not committing to deliver you, we're not even committing to deliver you solar power, we're committing to deliver you power. So the solar array, everything having to do with that is our responsibility.
How about expansion and growth? So assuming, our town hall is the size that it is now, but, growth in the county, growth everywhere, we have to add on an extension to the building. For example, 7 more servers and computers and lights, et cetera, heat. How does that contract work then? Because now we've expanded, our power use that we're using today. Let's say in 7 to 8 years, we do an expansion, we put 3 more offices on, and our consumption has risen.
I guess the way I'd like to answer that is in a couple ways. Number one is, we're contracting for a specific amount of power. So if your power usage goes up, we're still contracting for the amount of power we originally contracted for. If you expand your building and you have, in a lot of cases, we're maximizing the system that we can possibly put up based on your current usage and based on available space. And, by the way, based on the meter that's there. If you expand and you put another room up, another server room or whatever, and you have a second meter that goes along with that, there's a potential we could put an incremental system up. But ultimately, we're just contracting for a fixed amount of power today.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you can only place a system on for 110%, isn't that what you said?
Yes,
Of today's,
At today, at what our power usage is today.
that is correct.
That's right.
And the other side of that is I'm maxed out by NYSERDA's rule to a 50 kilowatt system per meter, period, right? So if you have a second meter, then I might be able to, depending on how that meter is structured, be able to add another array on. The other side of this is NYSERDA can change its rules at any point in time. Since we've been in the business, they've changed the rules a number of times. I mentioned earlier that we have one of the largest non-utility arrays sitting at the top of Meridians. NYSERDA rules at that point in time were that I could do that. I could not today put up that same size system on Meridians with the rules under public opportunity notice or upon 2112. I couldn't put up a larger, that same size system. In the future, the system size may shrink, it may expand, there may be different funding mechanisms that NYSERDA might have. They are talking about allowing us to expand existing systems, but none of those rules are there or those subsidy programs are there today.
So could we enter into a second contract? Months next month, we put an addition on the building, you got a second meter, you want to do the same thing?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I
You have
really
a
love it.
Contract, a second contract for that.
Absolutely, yes.
Would it have to be 20 years again, or could it be something that could be aligned with our current contracts that would all renew at the same time?
Price fluctuates a lot on our componentry. We'd have to look at that. My instinctive reaction is we measure each deal as an independent deal. So that would, I don't want to commit, you know, I would say it would be likely that we would be looking for 20
You're on
years.
tape, right?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm very sensitive here. Right. No, it'd be likely that we'd be coming back to you guys and saying it will be a 20-year deal because our fundamental underlying economics won't change. Having said that, everything, as you pointed out, does change, and maybe there's some way we can address that. But right now, I don't see a way that'll change.
How much input do we have in the design?
As much as you'd like. I'm not going to violate any C code. I'm not going to violate fire code. But any input you want, we will. If you want to get into some of the electronics and some of the calculations, we'd ask for a non-disclosure agreement. But other than that, absolutely, we have no hesitancy to allow you guys in and take a look at whatever you want. Absolutely not.
Well, my initial thought was just placement of the panels, things like that.